Right, you are still watching Business Edge. However, there are interruptions with the Rivers State governor's impeachment process. The governors within the state, the impeachment process is underway within the State House Assembly. So that's going to have to interrupt regular programming. My colleague Judith Etibi is on standby to expand on that conversation. Do you mind bringing us the latest, Judith?
Very good morning to you. Many thanks. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for that intro. Just a bit of a lowdown here for us on the latest regarding the Rivers State impeachment for Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu. Now, we know that so far so good. The impeachment proceedings is still going on full on following the House, the meeting of the House. The House converged today, this morning, and that's the House of Assembly, which was presided over by the Speaker of the House, Honorable Martins Amawale. And what happened afterwards was that they all conceded to continuing with that proceedings, and now the case is now removed to the Chief Judge, the High Judge of the state, which will now initiate an investigation on the allegations of gross misconduct which was levied against him by all members. I think about 27 members of the House of Assembly. Now, do not quote me on those numbers, because we know that earlier on this week, 2 members had to step aside and had a press briefing, a world press briefing, saying that they were, laying all cases regarding the governor. Now, the governor has not put out any statement yet. Neither has his deputy. Well, to give us more in-depth analysis on this, we're being joined by a guest who joins us virtually live. And let me just pull up his name for us here. My guest this morning is the former member of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Ogbonna Nwuke. He joins me live via virtually there. A very good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
I need to make a correction. I wasn't a member of the House of Assembly. I was a member of the House of Representatives.
House of Representatives, my sincerest apologies for that. Is a member, a former member of the Rivers State House of Representatives. Also joining us is Ekine Henry. He's a legal practitioner. He's also joining us virtually. Mr. Henry, good morning to you. So whilst we try to establish connection with him, let me just come to you. Now, we know that in a dramatic turn of event, 4 lawmakers had earlier withdrawn their support for the lawmakers and now reversed the course. But they withdrew their support for the impeachment. But nonetheless, the impeachment is still full on and all steams are all set to go. What are your thoughts regarding the meeting, the convergence this morning with all of the members? What are your thoughts on the outcome of that assembly meeting?
I think that, thank you so much. The general mood here in Rivers does not in any way sustain the decision by the House to proceed with the impeachment drive. The reason being that people in Rivers are tired of elite confrontations and tired of what appears to be the constant interference of the supposed godfather. And so basically, the voices that you're hearing may sound like the voices of the members of the House of Assembly, but everyone here knows that's the voice of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory that we're hearing. We've not had peace, and the reason being that since the governor joined the APC and was made to fill the Form 001, all hell has been let loose. If you recall, that until that time, even the frosty relationship which may exist between the executive and the legislative was not overblown. But right now, it's a combination of forces. And what we do have here is an assembly that is saying it is going ahead with impeachment. And at the time that you have a series of engagements coming from different groups and even the constituents of these lawmakers. Of course, as you rightly said, 4 lawmakers have withdrawn from pursuing the impeachment and have appealed to their colleagues, quoting them to tamper justice will mess according to them.
Right.
But quite a lot of people here also do not imagine that the governor has committed impeachable offenses as members of the assembly allege.
To your knowledge, right, we're going to get into the political part of it, but I do have to ask you, you are formerly a member of the House of Representatives. You've also watched on the sidelines. And so I have to ask you, from your own assessment, has the governor committed any of this infringements and this gross misconduct that has been levied against him?
Well, as you know, what you consider gross misconduct is what the House calls it. No one outside the House can say precisely what gross misconduct means. And of course, we do know that the House has constitutional backing to engage in impeachment of a governor, a serving governor. And here in this instance, we have both the governor and his deputy tied to the same impeachment. And quite a lot of people ask, what did the deputy governor do? Now, that means that what we see, what we hear, is a product of some political disagreement. And this is the third time, for the avoidance of doubt, that the House will threaten impeachment, meaning that anytime there is a disagreement or perceived disagreement between the governor and the minister, then the House, led by Amewule, will threaten impeachment. And so this is the point. But to answer you directly, no one can say with any measure of certainty in Rivers that the governor has committed impeachable offenses.
Thank you for that.
There have been, can I proceed?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Now, there have been arguments over budget presentation. And I'm certain that these lawmakers know that within the period of dependency of the emergency rule, that Evers, the former military administrator, tried to approach the National Assembly for a passage of the budget. Now, that budget presented by Evers was resisted by the National Assembly because from the point of view of the National Assembly, it had no democratic locus to do so. And so the presidency transmitted this budget to the National Assembly. It's on record that the National Assembly passed that budget on the 21st of July. And it was not for a period of 6 months, for a period of 1 year, 12 months, meaning that the budget is alive. And so the constant request by the House for the presentation of a budget it doesn't add up if we are to tell ourselves some home truth, because the budget is alive. Okay?
Right.
Now, of course, there were arguments too about presenting a supplementary budget. And you know, as well as I do, that you present a supplementary budget when funding is an issue, when the budget aspirations of the budget are not being met. And in this instance, the House was requesting for a supplementary budget. And of course, you also know that it's the responsibility of the executive arm to present a budget when need be. Okay? And I think that we've seen quite a lot of issues evolving in Rivers that are not really constitutional,
right?
Not more political.
I don't want us to go too far from the issue of politics, right? Because I asked that question because I want to set the tone for my next question about politics. We're going to get to the issues of the budget, right? But most importantly, politics. Now, we know that by and large, Fubara is now an APC governor, and the entirety of the state is APC. So much so that the state chapter of the APC has disavowed themselves from these proceedings and also asked that the State House of Assembly, as you said, taper mercy with justice and do well not to continue with these proceedings, right? And so we saw the 4 members of the House who came out to, remove themselves from these proceedings. But yet, this meeting that's happened today, this plenary that's happened today, they insist on the impeachment and continue forward. What happens in terms of the political tone as it regards APC and the federal might's interests in Rivers State?
I think that quite a lot of people are waiting for what may be the intervention of the federal government. But at the party level, one thing is very clear. The leadership of the APC at the national level have spoken. There have been comments coming from the national chairman, have been comments coming from the national secretary, and all of these comments have been to say to the minister of the FCT to stay clear of internal matters of the APC. And it's strange that at a time like this, when members of the executive arm and members of the legislature belong to the same party, when conversations should go on naturally the way they ought to, some people are still flexing muscles and acting like, of course, nobody can say the State Assembly under the Constitution has no powers to engage in impeachment. But the issue is that there must be cogent, maybe verifiable reasons why there should be an impeachment. Now, I'm very certain that if you were to do a voice pop in Rivers State, in Port Harcourt, for example, you will find that the great majority of people are still at sea over the reason why a governor who is serving the people directly, who was elected by the people, is being frustrated. There have been an attempt to distract governance in Rivers, and everybody knows that for what it is, that at the APC level, the issue of who should be leader sparked some disagreement. And it's obvious that in line with the constitution of the APC, the governor is the leader of the state. And I do not also imagine that the constitution, which puts governors in charge of their states, envisage the situation where a supposed godfather will remote control government from outside. You know, so this is the reality that we have on ground here in Rivers, a situation where one man thinks that except he says so, Rivers can move forward.
Yeah,
and,
but the minister,
the minister are horrified by that this development.
Right, the ex-governor is not even a member of the APC. He's not a member. He might be a godfather, but at this point in time, he cannot, surpass the APC, because we know that the godfather of the APC and the organizer and pretty much the puppeteer of the APC is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So would you say that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is in support of this move, of this sort of influence that Wike has over the state?
I cannot speak for the president, but one thing is certain: the APC has a hierarchy, and the hierarchy has spoken. And of course, all of us know that the leader of the APC across the country is the president himself. And so what you are seeing here, in my view, is a direct challenge of the authority of the president, because I do not imagine that Fubara was accepted into the APC without the knowledge of the president, without his approval. I also do not imagine that Fubara was made to fill that Form 001, which sparked quite a lot of furor, if again, all of this was not known to Abuja, but we have a situation on our hands where one man is fighting at home, one man is fighting within the PDP, one man is fighting across the country. Even in the Federal Capital Territory, there's a lot of fight. And so I'm sure, I'm not speaking about a stranger. The Nigerian people know who we are talking about, and his antecedents are well known.
Right. So I must also just quickly, before I continue my next question for you, I've been informed that Henry Ekine joins us now as a legal practitioner who joins us to give us a bit of legal perspective on this. Mr. Henry, many thanks. We appreciate you for coming on. A very good morning to you. I mean, if you can hear me, there's also the issue. We understand that, the House of Assembly has continued. They said they're insisting on the impeachment. It's now been moved to the Chief Judge, which will now execute an investigation on the allegations of gross misconduct. And one of the issues here is the matter of budget. And so I do have to ask, I mean, you know all the details regarding this budget issue, but if the Rivers State, or rather by refusing to receive the governor's budget while accusing him of unconstitutionally spending money, is this assembly safeguarding democracy or just manufacturing a fiscal crisis to justify impeachment? What do you say?
I think it has become one really troubling issue that one would imagine if these gentlemen, the members of the University House of Assembly, actually mean well for the state. But to go straight to it, it's ridiculous that the same House of Assembly that the governor had actually told the public that he had communicated to them and had discussion with them with respect to the appropriation law of Rivers State that is existing. I listened to my colleague who is speaking earlier, who was still on the program, and speaking about the existing appropriation law that has been made for Rivers State. So if the members of the University House of Assembly are curious, are concerned, or for whatever reason, they want another appropriation law, it certainly definitely will be a supplementary. Whether it is justified is another question. And then the approach of a removal or the commencing the process of removing a governor and deputy governor on that premise is seriously disturbing. And then I think it's unacceptable because first, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria vests exclusive power on the governor, who is the head of the executive and the chief executive officer of the state, to cause to be laid an appropriation bill before a House of Assembly, not just the Rivers State House of Assembly, all of the 36 states House of Assembly established under Section 90 of the Constitution. It is the governor alone that has that exclusive constitutional power to do so. And then there is no provision in the Constitution that requires as to what time or that even vests power in the House of Assembly to compel the governor to so do. Because where the governor fails to do, there's already a provision in the Constitution as to what should happen. Even after the threshold of 6 months that the Constitution vests power on the governor to continue to authorize withdrawal from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state. So all of these put together, and maybe to simplify it, what I mean is this. Assuming without considering that there is no appropriation law, that is, there is no budget in a state, from the commencement of a new fiscal year, which arguably the 1st of January in a new year, a governor can continue to authorize withdrawals that is legitimately within the provisions of the Constitution, continue to run the state,
right,
continue to expend money from the state fund, continue to execute projects without infringing on the provisions of the Constitution. So one would wonder what exactly will be the premise for a process of removal of the governor or deputy governor on the basis of appropriation law, particularly in the case of Rivers State. But for the other matters, which appear to be infuriating the members of the House, annoying the members of the House, and it's also ridiculous to make reference to the governor not being trustworthy for failing to adhere to agreement. One will ask the question, what agreement? Does the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that clearly provides for the functions of a governor include to adhere to any extraneous agreement, any private agreement, was still an agreement that is not legal and that cannot be enforced in this society by any way? Because every agreement between parties isn't going to be enforceable except such agreement has the ingredients of a valid and enforceable agreement. You cannot agree with one another to commit an offense. So you cannot agree to disenfranchise a Nigerian. You cannot agree, for instance, to compel a person to perform a function that the Constitution did not require of him to perform.
Right.
Or not to perform a function that the Constitution exclusively requires of him to perform.
So how
then critical legal issues that indeed challenge those grounds they have raised in their purported impeachment notice.
Thank you for that, because I do have to ask you, how then does the House intend to justify the impeachment or the impeaching of a governor for alleged spending without an approved budget, while simultaneously refusing or, frustrating the presentation of the very appropriation bill required to legalize the spending? How do they intend to justify that? Because we know that they've now raised the issue and saying that it's now going to the courts, which will now initiate an investigation proceedings. Do you see this? I mean, do they have any leeway or any sort of grounds for an investigation? And will the investigation reveal true and fair both sides?
Without preempting the outcome of the 7-man panel that may be constituted, what to say clearly for the purpose of analysis here,
yes,
no removal process of a governor or deputy governor starts and ends with a legislative house. Right. So the Rivers State House of Assembly has merely alleged if you like, the infraction of provisions of the Constitution, which they will appear before the panel, if so constituted, even the proceedings of today, that the House has resolved, if so reported, that the Chief Judge of the state should cause the 7-man panel to be constituted. It is not the House that will investigate. So I worry what the members of the House of Assembly are going to appear before the panel to give credence to the allegation and then to prove these allegations, because all of the items of the notice of allegation of commission of gross misconduct have to be established by those who have alleged. Let our viewers understand that it's like every other criminal or civil proceeding in court,
right,
where you will establish what you have accused the other person to have committed. So the panel is the quasi-judicial panel that will be constituted. And then we expect that that panel should be unbiased, should be dispassionate, and then should be one indeed as the Constitution required of persons of integrity.
Can it be unbiased?
It's so constituted that all of these members have to appear to defend themselves and to prove those allegations. Where will be the substance of proof here?
Right.
Let's take one, just the budget. It is a budget. So it is the members of the House of Assembly that come and say there is no budget.
Right.
And in the case that they come to say there is no budget, then again, if it is about the 2026 financial year, they would also refer to the provisions of the Constitution in the defense of the governor.
I don't want
continue to authorize the law.
Henry, I don't want us to go too far, right? Because we're really pressed for time. Do you see in the selection of this panel for the investigations, can they choose those who will be unbiased, and how would that process look like? Very quickly, if you have 30 seconds, because we're pressed for time.
Yes, indeed. It is the exclusive power vested in the Chief Judge of Rivers State. And the Honorable Chief Judge of Rivers State, I know and I believe, is an incorruptible judge, and they will do just what the Constitution has required him to do, to look out for persons who will be incorruptible, will be dispassionate, and then will do justice for the people of Rivers State.
Only time will tell. Very quickly, let me come to you, Mr. Ogbonna, before we close up this hour, because we're really pressed for time. Politically, right, as we look at the major influence here and the person who we have now deemed as Godfather, as he stretched his powers far too long, do you think that it is very possible in this dispensation, and in this our democracy, and in this administration, that an APC governor will be impeached? Do you think that Wike has stretched it, or at this point has he beat the hand that fed him?
Well, everyone who has had legal dealings with Wike, those including those in the PDP, know that he's highly very controversial and a non-conformist. A man who does not respect rules, does not respect order, who thinks that shouting at the top of your voice or instigating crisis everywhere is the best thing to do. I recall him saying in Port Harcourt before he left that he didn't apply to be a priest. He said he chose to be a politician and that he should be allowed to play politics the way he wants, meaning there are no ground rules. Okay, but frankly, it's a good thing that before now there used to be one-sided narrative, and that was narrative coming from the minister himself and those who work with his stormtroopers. Now, this country knows that Fubara is not the trouble seeker. Fubara is the one who's seeking peace, who's seeking understanding, who believes that institutions, democratic institutions, should be greater than individuals. We are not looking for strong men, rivers. Okay, this is the problem that we have. And it's our hope that rational-minded persons, that reasonable-minded people will prevail on the minister to act within the norms of reason.
Right. Hopefully he will dance to that tune as well when it comes to reason and, you know, and do what's best at the end of the day for the people of Rivers State. And just the way this last year has played out and this year is playing out for the sake of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, it's sad, it's saddening all through. Well, this is still a developing story. Let's see how it plays out the entirety of today and into next week. I want to say thank you to my guest. First of all, Mr. Ogbonna Nwuke, who is a former member of the Rivers State House of Representatives, also legal practitioner, Ekine Henry. Gentlemen, thank you so much. My name is Judith TV. You've been watching our live, just a bit of analysis on the developing story regarding the impeachment of Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy, of Rivers State. Let's go on a short break. When we return, Blessings Sugo is on standby to bring you the 12 report. Stay with us.